Sportscast Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Kerry Jr. II. Today on the show, we'll hear a proposal to expand the city of Detroit and increase its tax base. Is mayoral write-in candidate Rogelio Landin's big idea for the city's future.
Also, there are so many factors that go into poor outcomes for students in Michigan, and one of them is simply missing too many classes.
Two Wayne State researchers recently released a book highlighting the issue of chronic absenteeism.
And if you're from Michigan, you're familiar with deer, and as the population grows, so do many other issues.
We'll hear about a coalition of communities impacted by the deer's population and what's being done about it. But first, Michigan's education is in a tough spot. Our schools have struggled post-pandemic. Students lag behind in reading and math skills compared to other states across the country. And it's a concern that has many leaders looking for solutions. Governor Gretchen Whitmer wants to expand the universal pre-K program. Gubernatorial candidate and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, he wants to spend about $4.5 billion on Michigan schools. And the State Board of Education is calling for smaller class sizes. So solutions are being proposed, and a group of progressive education organizations have an idea of their own. The coalition wants to fund the state schools from the pockets of Michigan's highest earners through the Invest in Michigan Kids initiative. The proposal would add a 4 to 5% tax on single filers who earn over $500,000 or joint filers who earn over $1 million. And that would generate about $1.7 billion for Michigan's school aid fund. Charlie Cavell is an Oakland County commissioner and a coordinator for Fund Michigan Futures. He joins me now to discuss this proposal. Charlie, welcome to the Metro.
Good morning.
How you doing? So, Charlie, first I want to understand really briefly Fund Michigan Futures. What is it? What do you all do?
Oh, thank you for asking. So Fund Michigan Future, Fund My Future, is a coalition of organizations that come together because we believe in something we call tax justice. And what that means to us is in these modern times, in this big, complicated world, the way you show you care about your neighbor and one another is through taxes. So our whole goal is to try and make that framing common amongst all of us.
And that framing, as I imagine, includes taxing, like this proposal suggests, the higher earners in Michigan and distributing the funds for that taxes to other services throughout the state.
Exactly, yeah.
Got you. So tell me about this proposal here, the Invest in Michigan Kids or My Kids proposal. Where did it come from?
Oh, great question. So it came from years of people in the education world seeing cuts and freezes and underfunding. I can tell you just personally, as someone who used to be a school social worker in Detroit Public Schools, back during the emergency manager days of DPS, back in 2010 and 11, I was a school social worker in a school with 700 kids, and there was no toilet paper in the bathroom, and the textbooks were 10 or 12 years old, and I was one social worker for 700 kids. So enough educators and people that care about kids, like parents and children that then become adults, coming together realizing, oh, we deserve better. So that's where this comes from.
It's just the idea of the resources aren't quite enough, and so we need to fund those resources a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
Got you.
Absolutely.
So to that point, as I said in the intro, the proposal would generate about $1.7 billion for the Michigan School Aid Fund. How will it address students' needs? Is it for specific books? Go ahead and tell me about what you all want to do with it, or what do you hope is done with it?
Yeah, so I think to frame this out, first we should recognize that in 2005, Michigan was 17th in the country in terms of school quality, and today we're 40 or 44th, depending on which metrics you look at in school quality. So one, that's just a damning statistic, and again, we should be doing better as a state. But what this funding would go towards is decreasing class sizes, helping with mental health supports, helping with IEP and special ed needs and 504 plans, helping with school social workers, helping with teacher training and retention and recruitment, all the stuff that's in the classroom that you need to make sure that there's a successful student who's able to then graduate and thrive instead of just kind of muddle through and survive. That's the whole point of this.
Now, this proposal also assumes, too, that the funding is like the main issue. We need more money, not the money that we have isn't being used properly. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I can understand how there might be money not being the only answer, but it for sure is the biggest problem.
Got you. So, according to Pew Research Center, about 58% of U.S. adults surveyed believe that taxes for businesses and households that make over $400,000 should be raised. So, broadly, there is support here that people feel that taxes can be raised on folks who earn lots of money or over $400,000. Do you believe that's a similar distribution that exists and that people believe that here in Michigan?
I sure hope so. That's the goal. And I think just to put a finer point on what you're saying, like you mentioned in the intro, the goal is households that have incomes of $1 million a year or more would see a surcharge of 5%. So just an example of what that means. A person that makes, or a family that makes $1.2 million a year would pay an extra $10,000 to help make Michigan schools better.
I see. And have you spoken to folks here about this kind of proposal? Have you heard what people think about raising taxes for higher earners in Michigan?
Absolutely. So not only me and our team at Fund My Future, but also our coalition of partners have gone around the state since January talking to all sorts of community groups, big and small. And we've talked to not just folks that wouldn't be impacted by this increase in the surcharge to fund our schools directly by paying more in taxes, but we've also talked to people that would be included in that. And to be honest, we have not really gotten any pushback. Out of the 50 community conversations I've had, I can only think of 2 or 3 people that had follow-up questions about, well, what about the millionaires? But other than that, everyone just kind of nods along and says, yeah, as they should.
Even the folks, you said even the folks whose money, who earn over 500,000, they said, yeah, that makes sense. What about the people who make more than us?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And there were any other like inquiring questions about where the money would go or whether that percentage is going to stay the same? They were all just along for the ride on this proposal?
Once I clarify that it's not about your retirement account, it's not about the art collection you have or your second house, it's about your income per year, a lot of people go, oh, okay, that's not me. And then if it does include you, in one-on-one conversations I've had with folks, they all have said, by and large, I guess not all, but everyone except for a couple has said, well, yeah, I went to public school, and when I went to public school, we were 10th, 15th, top percentage in the country in school quality. So it's just a shame that schools have gone down so much. Or you hear people's personal stories of, well, I had to move to Birmingham because my child has special needs and we needed to find a school district that could accommodate them because where we used to live, they didn't have a good special needs curriculum or program or amenities that we thought our child would benefit from. So we had to then spend more money. We then had to buy a big house in Birmingham, or we then had to pay higher property taxes in Birmingham so that our kid could get the services they require. And that shouldn't be how it goes, because what about all the kids that couldn't live in Birmingham and go to Birmingham schools, as an example?
Well, that's interesting. So first thing I think that was interesting. First thing I think that was interesting of what you said was the fact that the assets not being included made folks kind of reframe their positioning, or at least think about your proposal differently. And on top of that, it's the services that you all want to fund specifically that help all types of families from all types of income brackets.
Yeah, totally. Well, and the fundamental point of our initiative is to be a positive thing for making us think about one another as neighbors and community members, right? So yes, this is on the face of it, invest in my kids because our kids deserve better schools than being 44th in the country. Absolutely. And who can afford to pay for that first and the most? Folks that make $1 million a year in income can add an extra 5% surcharge on every dollar of $1 million. True. But it's also about helping us realize that together we are better.
I want to go to this income point that I brought up in kind of my previous statement. The Research Policy and Advocacy nonprofit Ed Trust Midwest, it recently reported that Michigan's funding for low-income students ranks in the bottom 10 states in the country. So let's say this proposal is adopted. You've already outlined now programs that it could go to. Does it take into consideration the fact that it needs to fund certain educational districts because they are struggling in Michigan and may need a little bit more assistance?
That is one of the things that we certainly hope comes from this, but because our effort is to add that $1.7 billion to the school aid fund at the state level, this is also part of the We're Better Together mindset. Is it will ultimately be up to the legislature to not squander this benefit that we're all going to work to create for all of us. So ideally, yes, but that's up to the state reps and state senators that make that budget.
You're listening to The Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Kerry Jr. My guest is Charlie Cavell. He is an Oakland County Commissioner and a coordinator for Fund My Future, Fund Michigan Future. It's a joint coalition of community organizations, and we're discussing a ballot proposal that would raise taxes on high earners to fund Michigan schools. Charlie, so the conservative group, the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, argues that we spend more on education with no better results, and that there are fewer people who attend public schools in the state. What do you say to people who think that the money isn't the problem and accountability is, and that we're already spending so much?
I hear that, and I think the main goal of what both sides of this argument should be focusing on is helping make sure we get best outcomes. So I don't want to be disparaging or, not positive to another group, but I will try and claim that I think that the focus might be on the wrong group. So when you talk about needing more accountability, I think that's missing the forest through the trees, wherein if you have teachers that are underpaid and not supported, if you have federal cuts and state cuts, which are all looming currently and have been in ever-present danger for the last 2 decades in this state for education, if you have things like the IDEA, which is a federal law that has never been fully funded to help support kids with like autism or 504 or IEPs in special needs programs in schools, I think, sure, we could talk about accountability, but the main thing is if you don't have the money to pay teachers well, to make class sizes small, to make sure that kids have toilet paper in the schools or books that are current to learn from, then we should do that first before talking about holding teachers' feet to the fire for not being able to teach a kid math when they haven't had breakfast.
Well, don't those go hand in hand? And accountability, couldn't it go beyond just teachers? Could it be the superintendents of school districts? Couldn't it be how lawmakers are divvying up the funds? As you said, it's kind of in their hands to do what they can with the money that you raise with this potential proposal. If they're not handling it correctly, shouldn't that also be addressed as well? Otherwise, the money is just there.
Yeah, that's what elections are for. Every 2 years, you vote for a state house candidate in your district, in the community you live in. Every 4 years, you vote for a state senator. Every 4 years, you vote for a governor. So that's where you have the accountability about how you use the money that's being allocated to schools. And that's trusting in democracy or improving democracy itself.
I think I'm losing you a little bit, Charlie. You're fading out a little bit. I don't know if that's a mic situation, but I think I heard you say it's about voting for like governors and local officials. Is that correct?
Yeah, that every 2 years you vote for your state rep candidates in your district, and every 4 years you vote for the state senate candidate and the governor. So when you have elections is where you are able to provide the accountability of how that money is spent. So blaming superintendents and teachers seems like the wrong direction to be going in.
Got you. In a Bridge for Detroit article, they looked at Michigan's income tax analysis from 2021 that was published last year, and it read that the proposed tax that you all are saying would raise $1.7 billion, as I said before, but that's about 10%. That's less than a 10% increase of the state's $20.6 billion K-12 budget. It seems like that's a smaller percentage of the budget that we already have. This kind of also speaks to the issue above: is there already enough money in there? What kind of, I guess, dramatic impact do you expect these dollars to have if we've already spent, over 10%, $20.6 billion more dollars on education already?
Yeah, I think first we got to talk about cuts. So federal cuts to the Department of Education have impacted districts all across the state and will continue to do so. So you're talking about $20.6 billion, but that's before Department of Ed cuts from the federal government. That's before the State House passed a budget with a $5 billion cut to the school aid fund. And that's also not talking about how the school aid fund under the previous governor was merged with universities in terms of funding. So that in effect was a cut. So while funding has stayed roughly around $20 billion for the last decade and a half, things have gotten more expensive. Cuts have hurt local districts and school communities across the state more and more, and we've been adding more responsibilities and tasks for that same amount of money to be spent.
And then ultimately, you said the dollars will pretty much go to the state. The legislature will determine how it's going to be divvied up. At this point, we're raising money. You're getting signatures for folks to get these funds. But I guess I'm wondering, on the other side, how are you going to advocate for what these dollars will be paid for? How will you make the tangible change you hope to make with the funds that you raise, which you could raise if this proposal is adopted?
Yeah. So just to make sure it's clear, this money would completely and totally and solely go to the school aid fund. So the money that goes towards and the funding that the school aid fund is allowed to be used for is extremely limited.
Right.
So it would be, so that's one thing. It might not be depending on what the legislature decides to do, they might not say we should just give poor school districts a bigger per pupil allowance. They might not say that. They might also say that. They might also invest more in special needs and wraparound services for kids and all the other things that you need to make a school successful, including smaller class sizes and teachers that stay in the career and don't get burnt out.
So then I guess I wonder, what are the next steps then? I know you have to collect signatures. How many? Yeah, you're trying to get signatures? Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've passed the Board of Canvassers. We were approved for being able to collect signatures with our 100-word statement on the petitions. So just like what has happened in 2022 and 2024 and 2018 with ballot proposals, we have to collect 422,000, I believe it is, verified signatures of Michigan residents above the age of 18. And then we have to turn those in by July 2026 and then get it on the ballot and win in November 2026 to get enough people in Michigan to vote yes on this proposal.
And then
we need lots of volunteers.
And if it is adopted, would that be implemented in 2027?
Yep, it would be the next fiscal year, so 27.
All right. Charlie Cavell is an Oakland County Commissioner and a coordinator with Fund Michigan Futures, Fund My Future Coalition. They aim to collect signatures to raise taxes on high earners to fund Michigan schools. Charlie, thanks so much for joining us on the Metro and breaking this all down for us.
Thank you, Carrie.
Government funding comes and goes, but the voices of Detroit stay strong with your help. WDET is facing some serious revenue challenges due to the potential cuts being proposed in Washington. So to keep this station thriving, we're turning to the real source of power. That's you. Our goal is 1,000 additional members. Let's stand together. Join now at wdet.org/give and tell a friend. All right, coming up, students may be on summer break, but chronic absenteeism is a years-long problem. We'll hear about the roots of that problem and some solutions next. We'll be right back.